Well, let's take a look at this new idea that Microsoft has called Windows as a Service. What they're telling us is that Windows 10 is going to be the last version of Windows they will ever produce. Now, I don't know if they'll change their mind in the future. Future is a long time, but at least that's the model that they're sticking to right now. Instead of having a Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, Windows 12, Windows 13, and so on, they're saying, well, we're just going to take Windows 10 and then we're going to keep changing the version number about about twice a year. And so we call that the semi-annual channel system of releasing Windows. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at my Windows version right now. I'm just going to type WinVer, and we'll run that little thing, and you can see here that I'm running version 1903 right now on my machine. I'll talk about what that means in a moment. But first of all, let's take a look at that update schedule, that twice a year schedule. It looks something like this. We have these automatic updates in something called flights or rings or branches or channels. They keep changing the name of how they what they call them, but it's this mechanism for progressively releasing to broader and broader audiences so that testing is done to make sure that everything's in order before the general population or businesses have it. Now, there are several of these rings or flights or branches that we have in this thing, and I'm going to take a look at this visually like this. First of all, the engineering group, in other words, the software engineers within Microsoft get a crack at it, and then they can give their feedback and say, well, this needs change, this is not good, and so forth. We have some suggestions over here. And once they have a nice stable version that they like, then they will release it to the broad Microsoft internal population, that is to say, the rest of the employees at Microsoft. So now we have tens of thousands of people that work for Microsoft that can now check it and give their feedback. And once some changes are made and we have it nice and stable, now we introduce that to the Insider Preview branch. You can sign up as an insider and get them get all these updates relatively, well, actually free. As a matter of fact, if you look at my system here, let me get down to my desktop, you can see down here in the bottom corner it says Windows 10 Pro Insider Preview Evaluation Copy 18917R and so on, pre-release. So in other words, I'm an insider, and so I am on that track where we now have several million people like myself who take a look at it and give feedback and so forth. And then once we get done with that, it goes out to what we call a production channel, but it's not really a production channel. This actually is in several parts, and I'm going to go back here to our text to look at, or I should say my notes to look at it. After the insiders, this actually breaks into something called the semi-annual channel targeted and the semi-annual branch. So targeted branch means that it's released to the general population. Now, the reason it's called targeted is because if you're a business, you may want to release this to targeted people, certain targeted people in your organization to test first. But this is the point at which the general population gets a crack at it and sees it. And then businesses, if you're on the semi-annual branch, will see it somewhat 4 months or so after the general population sees it. And then there actually is another one that's not listed here called the long-term service branch, which are those businesses who want to delay it even farther to have a chance to test their software against it and so forth. So now we have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different levels, although it doesn't really show them all here. Once it gets to that semi-annual targeted branch, those are all wrapped into this production channel here. But we call it the semi-annual channel release system. Now, what about that numbering? 1809, 1903. You saw that mine is 1903. This actually refers to the year and the month that it should be released. So the 1809, for example, was released around September of 2018. And 1903 actually didn't make it by March of 2019. It actually didn't make it until about the end of May 2019. And that might be one of the reasons why they're going to this new system, because they can't guarantee how soon these things are going to come out. So in the future, we may see something like this: year H1 for half of number 1, and year H2. So I presume that we'll see maybe a 1909, and then after that we'll see 20H1, 20H2, 21H1, 21H2, and so on. That's just my guess. I don't know when this changeover is going to occur. Now, these are called feature updates. They're not really called upgrades per se, but they're feature updates. And then we still have regular updates, security updates and so forth, that fix problems and patch security holes. And those are still done every second Tuesday of the month. We call that Patch Tuesday. You'll note, if you run Windows on a daily basis, you'll note that the second Tuesday of the month or so, you'll start seeing updates on that particular day. Be prepared for it. Make sure that you leave time for that to happen that day, or put it off in some way, so that it doesn't interrupt your work. Well, that's it for Windows as a Service, the new distribution system that Windows is going to go through from here on out, at least according to Microsoft. So thank you for listening.